Welcome to the second session in a series of sessions in EH 203.1 Anatomy of Food Animals. And our session today is on the comparative anatomy of the circulatory system. My name again is William Nelson. Let's go. Before we go into the comparative anatomy of the circulatory system, I wish to introduce to you some of the external features of the heart, which we are going to use them often in comparing this system. There are two important features here. We have this coronary furrow and we have these ventricular furrows. As you can see here, they have a lot of fat and the coronary blood vessels and on the ventricular blood vessels. And we are going to, in most cases, refer these two features in distinguishing these systems for the food animals we are going to discuss. So let's go directly to the comparative anatomy now. Let's start with the features of the ox's heart. We call it ox or bovine. The bovine have three ventricular furrows, but unfortunately in this picture you can see only two. And these three furrows have distinctive features. The left or anterior furrow goes towards the apex, while the left and the right one doesn't reach the apex. It ends somewhere 3 to 4 centimeters above the apex. And the intermediate one, which is the third one, is also a little bit narrow, and it goes almost towards the middle of the heart, of the ventricular side of the heart, and we can't see it in the picture here. In contrary, horses have two ventricular furrows, and as we also saw in the bovine, the right furrow doesn't reach the apex, while the left furrow goes towards the apex. Also, ox's heart, on the aortic ring, there are two distinct bones here. We call them the osacodes. These bones are in different shapes. You can see this one is triangular, while the other one is a little bit inconsistent in terms of shape. Ox's heart weight is approximately 2 kg, and heart is a little bit longer, and the base of the heart is a little smaller compared to the horses. And the ventricular part is more conical and more pointed than in the horse, and the amount of fat in or near the furrows is much greater than that on horse. Also, issues to note is fat is color. In ox, as you can see here, it is not white, not yellow, but it's somehow yellow. In a horse, there are no bones in the horse's heart, and it is a little bit elongated. It is less elongated compared to ox's heart, and its base is a little bit larger. We saw in ox's, the base is a little bit narrower. And there is a less fat, and here fat is oily and yellow. And the weight of horses' heart varies depending on horses' species. In terms of sheep and goat heart features are similar, and they somehow resemble ox's heart. In terms of fat, here fat is a little bit whiter, but in ox it was not so white and not so yellow. The osacodes here may be absent or may be present depending on the sheep's age. And the breadth is usually equal to length. The breadth at the base, weight is approximately 100 grams, and its heart, as compared to a calf, its heart is a bit smaller in terms of size. And for the goat, these features of sheep's heart also applies to a goat as well. But we have some differences in terms of pig's heart. First of all, in terms of fat, the fat here is soft and greasy, and in terms of heart's appearance, its left ventricular side of the heart appears to a little bit, it's like it was pushed a little bit to the left. It is sags towards the left. There are 2 or 3 ventricular furrows in the pig's heart. What makes 2, what makes 3, we can see here. The intermediate furrow may be present or absent. And when it's present, it bears the similar features as we saw in the horse and ox. It doesn't go towards the apex. The lower edge of the, you can look at this heart here, the left auricle, there is this notch here. That's what they're talking about. There is a notch on the left auricle and the lower, and it is a little bit lower than that of the right auricle. And the weight also varies. We also have a deer. Generally, the deer's heart muscles are a little bit stronger than those of sheep, goat, and pig because of how it is needed in terms of running. But as well, there are 3 furrows here, although there is a very little fat present at the coronary vessels. The auricles are situated very high. You can see in this picture here. You can see the auricles, the right and left auricles, are a little bit pushed by the ventricles at the higher end of towards the aorta. And the heart is relatively larger than that of a sheep, and the cardiac muscles, as I said, are very firm. And there is very little fat in the coronary and the ventricular furrows. And you can imagine that's why this animal is a fast runner. So those are just a few of the distinctive features that you can use to identify hearts among those species. And of importance in the circulatory system as well is the lymph node system, the lymphatic system, because it's an indication of a lot of pathologies when it comes to meat inspection. We normally use these lymph nodes for diagnosis of several diseases during the post-mortem meat inspection. And size varies, but in horses normally have a lot of lymph nodes compared to cattle, and their lymph nodes are a little bit smaller. So you can see here they form grape-like groups of nodes in several parts of the body. And in older animals, this also occurs in humans. In older animals, the nodes are smaller than in young animals because they are less sensitive in detecting infection as compared to younger animals. And the nodes are generally round or oval in shape. And upon incision, they normally release a lymph fluid, and during inspection, incision of some of the lymph nodes is a must. You can't avoid that because you have to feel the color and smell of the lymph exudes, and sometimes you have to feel the texture of the lymph nodes themselves. And as I said, these are good sign of infection. A lymph node is infected, that means somewhere close to that lymph node, the animal had an infection. And these are principal lymph nodes in a cattle that are common in all ruminants or animals, and we normally use them during inspection. We have lymph nodes of the head. First, we have these retropharyngeal lymph node. And something to note in terms of lymph nodes, I think there are just 2 important things to remember. The location and where does it drain and receive from. Because where it drains might mean something in terms of infection. And where does vessels filling that lymph node come from? That might also be an indication of location of a disease. So the retropharyngeal lymph node is located on the side, as you can see here, and the posterior to the pharynx. And these are the afferent areas of this lymph node. And the efferent vessels come from, in most cases, the tracheal lymph ducts. So any infection in the respiratory system can be identified by how does the retropharyngeal lymph node look like. Also, we have the submaxillary lymph nodes, which is also on the each side of the head, and it is normally at the base of the tongue, where the tongue ends, and during inspection you must lift or incise the tongue for you to expose these two lymph nodes. Receive their afferents from these sides, and the efferents in most cases come from the atlanto node, which is less important here, and we rarely use this for identification of diseases. And then you have the parotid lymph node. The parotid lymph node, you can see it here. For you to see it during inspection, there is a need to incise the masseter muscles because it is located about 3 centimeters in front of the ear. But for you to see it, you must incise the masseter muscles. And then we have lymph nodes of the lung. We have the left and right bronchial lymph nodes, and then we have lymph nodes at the middle, the mediastinal lymph nodes, which goes along the esophagus as well. Then we have lymph nodes of the intestines, which are normally hidden around the mesenteries. And then we have the gastric lymph nodes. We rarely use these lymph nodes during inspection, but mesenteric lymph nodes are a good indication of a lot of diseases as well. And we also have lymph nodes in the hepatic lymph nodes located in the liver, which is normally embedded in fat at the ileum of the liver. And afferents are normally from within the liver. So any abnormalities in the hepatic lymph node are indication of infections within the liver. So these are in brief features that we can use to compare animals in terms of their circulatory system. Thank you very much for your attention.